I do have something important to talk about. That stems from the Rev React that I did last night. So with the Rev React last night, that was in regards to the whole thing with the TikTok Tylenol fucking thing. Okay? I didn't dive into this too much, and with the help of my crack team, I was able to do a little bit more research into this. Now, let me start off by saying that this is not in regards to people irresponsibly taking Tylenol or any over-the-counter medication irresponsibly. That is not what this is about. I'm still very much against and will decry anybody that takes any over-the-counter medication in an irresponsible manner, i.e., downing a whole shit ton of it just to spite the administration. I'm still vehemently against that. I still think those people are horrible individuals. And I do still think that especially pregnant women that are taking copious amounts, VDog, I heard about that too. They are basically going into criminality territory for child endangerment. Like VDog, I heard about the woman that basically like OD'd on them essentially, and may have ended the life of herself and her child. So, again, this is not in regard to that. Okay? Bearing in mind, this is not in regard to irresponsible use of over-the-counter medication. Okay? That I want to make that very fucking clear. Yeah, it's one person. This is one person that did it. One person only. Bear that in mind. This is one person that did the OD thing. Okay? Just bear in mind when I'm about talking, I'm repeating myself because if I don't, the internet will come after me and start reading at me. And so that's why I'm prefacing this by saying that this is not in regards to irresponsible behavior when it comes to over-the-counter medication. Just to be clear. I did some research, and the whole thing about Tylenol causing autism doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I will show you what I mean. So let me pull this up. Let's see, can I get this into a presentation mode, perhaps? Read mode. There we go. Okay. So let me do this. So, I found an article. Where is it? There we go. So, there's this article that was put out by Dr. Caitlin Jetelina and Kristen Panthagamali. Okay? And Caitlin is an epidemiologist. Okay? Yes, I'm doing a legal mindset and I'm whipping out the PP. Actually, I'm whipping out a PDF. The good kind. No, Alex, that's actually what I'm about to talk about here. So, for reference, the person that put out this newsletter article is an epidemiologist. And for reference, an epidemiologist is someone that studies how diseases occur in different groups and why. Okay? That is who Caitlin Jetelina is. She's an epidemiologist. She's one half of the person that wrote this newsletter. Okay? Talking about the article. Or talking about RFK Jr.'s autism report and what was said in the news interview and so on and so forth. Okay? Bottom line, she says, is scientists, actually, let me get rid of my tail so I'm not blocking stuff. Bottom line, scientists have been working to uncover autism for decades. This is ongoing, but for now, the balance of evidence shows this. There is no causal link between Tylenol use and autism. No causal link. So where did the claim come from? So basically, where they linked it to autism is basically some scientists have wondered if Tylenol might affect the baby's brain during pregnancy by stressing cells or changing certain pathways. These hypotheses primarily originate from laboratory and animal studies at high doses. High doses. And there have been other human studies. The paper behind many of the headlines this week is from a Harvard Mount Sinai study that reviewed over 46 studies evaluating the associations between Tylenol and neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism and ADHD, with 6 studies focusing specifically on autism. They found a mixture of conclusions. 27 studies found a positive link. Tylenol in pregnancy is correlated with neurological development disorders. 9 studies found no link. 4 studies showed a negative link. Tylenol is correlated with fewer neural development disorders. Okay? Now, here's another one. A study in 2024, a major study in Sweden in 2024, took the step one bit further. And thank you, Bay Harbor, doing that. So this 2024 study in Sweden took this evidence one step further, and basically they did this in a different way. They compared it with siblings. So one child had been exposed to Tylenol during pregnancy, the other had not. This kind of natural experiment is powerful because it controls what siblings share, including genetics and family environment. We know autism has a strong genetic component, so studies like this, controlling for genetics, are critical. The autism link disappeared when comparing siblings. When the research examined the data without sibling comparisons, they reproduced the same association that the older studies had found. That means the study was strong enough to detect the association, but also strong enough to show it evaporated once they controlled for genetics and other environment factors. Okay? Many epidemiologists do think there's a rise in autism due to improved recognition and diagnostic criteria, but not at the dramatic rate that the report insinuated. So this was the whole report where you heard Trump at the podium talking about how umpteen years ago it was 1 in 20,000, then it was 1 in 10,000, and now it's like 1 in 35. And he attributed to like autism is so severely on the rise and equated that to Tylenol. The reality is the methodologies in which autism can be detected have improved tremendously over the years. Scientists, medical scientists have been able to better recognize what people that have autism. They're able to recognize the symptoms. They're able to facilitate a diagnosis much more effectively now than they could, say, 20 years ago. And thus, you might see the increase in cases at this level because now the medical scientific community is able to recognize the symptomology and do an effective diagnosis better today than they could before. And at the same time, research shows that the autism is highly genetic. 85% of the risk is attributed to your genes. Another factor, Tylenol has decreased in usage over time. So, correlation does not equal causation. The use of Tylenol has decreased, yet the number of autism diagnoses has increased. So again, saying Tylenol causes autism is fucking stupid. By data alone. Here's the data. You have autism diagnoses here, starting from all the way back in like the 1960s, all the way up to today. We're seeing a steadily increase. Here is the percentage of women that take Tylenol during pregnancy. What are you noticing here? A downward trend. It is a downward trend of women who take Tylenol during pregnancy. So the idea that Tylenol is causing an increase in autism is scientifically fucking wrong. Scientifically is wrong. Some other factors that are included in this are advanced parental age, premature births, maternal inflammation such as infections, high fevers, or the immune activation during pregnancy, which could be mitigated by the use of Tylenol to reduce high fevers, and other factors including folic acid deficiency, obesity during pregnancy, and air pollution. So, the known benefit, Tylenol is one of the few pain and fever relievers considered safe during pregnancy. All other options have shown risks, not just potential, and treating fever during pregnancy is important as fever is associated with increased risk birth defects and has even been associated with an increased risk of autism in small studies. So, not one medication or one exposure causes autism. All evidence points to a constellation of factors with strong genetic component. The data to date has not demonstrated a causal link between Tylenol and autism. The American College of Gynecologists and Obstetricians recommends pregnant women use Tylenol if needed for fever and significant pain. So, basically, this is it right there. It's a convenient scapegoat for RFK. It's a very convenient scapegoat, and that's it. There is absolutely no scientific evidence to correlate Tylenol usage to autism. There you go, Tornado. You are a preemie. You have autism. You have not had vaccines, nor have you had Tylenol while your mother was pregnant. You know, there was no vaccines, no Tylenol, nothing while your mother was pregnant, and you still have autism. So basically, point blank, RFK is a fucking whack job and he's full of shit, and Donald Trump just repeated it on air in front of millions upon millions of people. Sorry. You did have vaccines. Okay. But yes, no, Tornado, I'm aware. I am very aware vaccines don't cause autism. The fact of the matter is, we don't have you can point to this and say, this is the cause of autism. We're not there. We don't know. And RFK's fucking insanity and Donald Trump repeating this fucking insanity. Look at what just fucking happened. Again, it's causing a massive fucking divide by using chunk science. And I got more. But wait, there's more. The very article that was being cited by Donald Trump regarding the FDA, this is the last paragraph or two of the FDA's release regarding Tylenol and autism. This is from the FDA. This is what Trump and RFK were hanging their hat on for this. U.S. Food and Drug Administration today initiate the process for a label change for acetaminophen, Tylenol, and similar products to reflect evidence suggesting that the use of acetaminophen by pregnant women may be associated with an increased risk for neurological conditions such as autism and ADHD in children. The agency also issued a related letter alerting physicians nationwide. The FDA is taking action to make parents and doctors aware of a considerable body of evidence about potential risks associated with acetaminophen. So the commissioner, even with this body of evidence, the choice still belongs to the parents. The precautionary principle may lead to many to avoid using acetaminophen during pregnancy, especially since most low-grade fevers don't require treatment. I would argue against that. It remains reasonable, however, for pregnant women to use acetaminophen in certain scenarios. But wait, there's more. Evidence Science has, in recent years, has suggested a correlation between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and subsequent diagnosis of conditions like autism and ADHD. This is a fucking lie. Multiple large-scale cohort studies, including Nurse Health Study 2 and the Boston Birth Cohort, find this association. Some studies have described that the risk may be pronounced when acetaminophen is taken chronically throughout pregnancy. Here's the kicker. After all of them saying, oh, there's a link between autism and Tylenol. That was the FDA. Their last paragraph. It is important to note that while an association between acetaminophen and neurological conditions has been described in many studies, a causal relationship has not been established, and there are contrary studies in the scientific literature. It is also noted that acetaminophen is the only over-the-counter drug approved for use to treat fevers during pregnancy, and high fevers in pregnant women can pose a risk to their children. Additionally, aspirin and ibuprofen have well-documented adverse effects on the fetus. Literally, the last paragraph in their release contradicts fucking everything they just said before. Fucking everything. That there is no causal factors linking Tylenol to autism. So, with literally 10 fucking minutes of research between me and those that helped me out today in finding some of this material, in 10 minutes of research, I literally just blew the entire argument that RFK, that the FDA, and Trump had for saying that Tylenol can cause autism out of the fucking water with 10 fucking minutes of research. No. I mean, what more is there to say? RFK, Trump, and whoever they had from the FDA speaking, y'all are full of shit and you should be ashamed of yourselves. You just caused a fucking panic. You just caused a whole shitload of people that have the TDS. I'm not denying the TDS there. I'm not denying it. Everybody that went on TikTok and said, I'm going to take a Tylenol just to prove Trump wrong, I'm not backing that. I'm not defending that in any way. Okay, I still feel the same way as I did yesterday watching those TikToks, is that those women that, are basically saying, I'm going to take Tylenol just to spit in the face of the Trump administration. I still think you're a bunch of fucking morons. Don't abuse Tylenol, because abuse of Tylenol or any over-the-counter drug is still going to be harmful to you and your unborn child. So you still should not be abusing it. I will still point at those people abusing it and say, you are a bunch of fucking morons too, and if you're potentially causing danger to your children, fucking stop it, you dumb cunts. I still fucking will lambaste those people too. But at the same time, I will absolutely call out the bullshit coming out of the White House doing this fake bullshit. Where they're basically making a public statement, supposedly backed by science that is junk science and is easily provable to be wrong, that Tylenol is linked to autism. I'm basically doing this to put on YouTube because this has to get out there, because I've had plenty of people on my Red video that are basically saying I'm being so unfair to Trump and my TDS is showing, fuck you on that. I literally call out the people that abuse over-the-counter medications, but I will call the fuck out of a president and the people under him that actually peddle provable falsehoods. I will call that the fuck out. It has nothing to do, Trump derangement syndrome, Zeb. That TDS is short for Trump derangement syndrome. My whole thing with him is, I don't give a fuck about his policies. I'm not in America. So like the immigration stuff and I called out how he acts like an asshole. People are still like, "Oh, we like that he's an asshole." Yeah, you're going to like he's an asshole until he turns the assholery on you. That's a whole different thing. But I will call shit out when it needs to get called out. I called out the women calling for the abuse of Tylenol, acetaminophen. I called them the fuck out for saying like, oh, I'll take whatever I want and potentially abusing over-the-counter drugs and causing harm to yourself and harm to your child. I'll call that the fuck out every day of the week.
There's an ancient quote, everything in moderation. That applies to medicine too.
I called that out yesterday, and I will also call out today that what he said was junk science and it was wrong. And he is putting out misinformation to the populace. And I will call it out. I don't care who the fuck you are. I don't care what the fuck your job is. If you're putting out misinformation and I can prove it with evidence, kind of like I just did, I will call you the fuck out on it. Every single time. I don't give a shit if you're a Republican. I don't give a shit if you're a Democrat. I don't give a shit if you're either. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I don't give a fuck. I will call it out every time. If factually, you are fucking wrong. And I will especially call it out if you're putting people's life at risk. Because when by fear-mongering about Tylenol like this, how many mothers that just believe everything that comes out of this fucker's mouth will suddenly not take Tylenol when they have a fever? And thus they just try and ride out the fever and thus potentially cause damage, cause injury to their unborn child. Yeah, I'm gonna call it the fuck out.